perspective. Chapter 17, Elijah took his cue from God. God says, I want you to go there. And he went there. You understand? And that's a message for you, John. There. You got to go where God, where there is. It's there for you. Okay, but God said, go there, Brook Cherry, and I will fix you up. He went there and he waited on God. But in chapter 19, he took his cue from the word, Jezebel.
Right.
You see, and that's why we make those our perspective changes. Because the more we get in the ministry, the more we begin to interpret doing ministry. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. You understand? When we first start, we see the power of God. But when we start getting in the acclamation and all the people get cheering us on, we say, well, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. And so God has to isolate us there and where we are so that we can get a better perspective. Because I believe that isolation, Jesus in John 16, chapter 16, the last verse number 32, Jesus says, in this world,
right,
you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Philippians 1:29, Jesus says, it is given, Paul says, it is given you on behalf of Christ, not only to believe,
but to suffer.
But also to suffer.
Yeah.
You see, if we have a good perspective, and again, my sister, back to perspective, if we have a good perspective, when these things come, we would say, well, all things work together for good. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and the indifferent, all those things working in our lives is for the glory of God. But it depends on the direction they're coming from. Some come from the direction because we're doing the right thing, and some come from the direction because we're doing the wrong thing. But if we stay, remember, we talked about Lot last. Remember, Lot, he came out of early Chaldees with Abraham and all that stuff. He stole the land from Abraham, and when he got in trouble with the kings, Abraham gone and free him up and rescue him. And then in chapter number 15, this is what Abraham said to the Lord. Lord, Lot getting everything. If you think I'm lying, look at it. He said, well, what is me? What am I getting? And God says, Abraham, I'm going to give you a son, and I'm going to give you a nation. I am your reward.
Right.
And in chapter 15, I think it's verse number 7, the Bible says, Abraham believed God, and it's been counted unto him for righteousness. What happened? Abraham saw Lot being rewarded for all his behavior. And look at me, I'm trying to live right, and I ain't get nothing. All I'm getting is rocks. But God said, your but isn't that the way it is?
Yeah.
Yes,
isn't that the way it is with us?
Yeah.
Psalm 17, the writer of Psalm 17 says, look here, my foot had almost slipped
when I saw
the wicked, the prosperity of the wicked.
Yeah.
He said they're fat, they curse you, they do all this thing, but me, who try to live right, I get nothing. Then the verse number 16 says, but I went into the house of God. You see, then I understood what you're going on. And that's what isolation should do to us. When we're in isolation, it should put us in a place where instead of seeking what is for me, we're seeking what is for you. You understand? And that is where, but that's where Elijah made the mistake in chapter 19. Because he sent away the person who was there to encourage him. He let his servant go. You understand? If he had kept the servant, he probably would have, Lord, I'm the only one, because he lied, because the servant was
but you know, Russ, but you know what, Russ, that's a very valid point in the fact of being isolated, because most of the time, if you look at it, most pastors, most people, leadership, and they really don't have nobody to turn to or to go to talk to.
Choice.
Right. And Elijah thought in his mind, maybe he was thinking that I don't know, because that's interesting. That's interesting. You know what I mean?
Very
Because
true.
it gives you thought that, okay, you know what I mean? Okay, let's go back. Let's look at what he said to his servant, basically, because the text says in verse number 3, and when he saw that, okay, when he saw what Jezebel was going to do, okay, he arose and ran for his life and went to Bathsheba, which belongs to Judah, and all the text says, and he left his servant there. Why would you leave your servant there? Is you trying to protect his life? I think the bigger picture here is this: he wanted to be alone. Okay, that's self isolation. Okay, and then in that moment of self pity and feeling all this, he don't want to hear nothing from nobody else. You understand?
It blinds us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It blinds us.
Right. You know what I mean? Because Ross, I'm in agreement with you. The servant could have been his encourager. You know what I mean? The servant could have taken him back. And when the servant joined him, the servant could have been there at the first call in chapter 17. To reminded him of all God did for him and all that he achieved and accomplishes to God. So why is it now that you're running from the voice of one individual that's controlling you and making you make these bad decisions and isolating yourself? You know what I mean? For me,
And that's
go ahead. Yeah.
the cue that we get, Pastor G, that was intentional self isolation. That's the